We get lots of questions on riding horses out on trails. It's such a common area for problems. So this week, here's some tips for you if you want a connected horse when you ride out. Hello, welcome to Mark Langley's Horsemanship Podcast, a podcast helping people to understand their horses better, to provide solutions in a calm, connected way. I'm Jenny Langley.
And I'm Mark Langley.
So, Mark, I want to ask you firstly, what is it about riding out that makes horses so anxious and creates so many problems for people?
Well, you take them into new territory, so, oftentimes you're going to a place they haven't been. There's a lot more sort of things out there to look at. So horses get comfortable in their own environment, but in a herd or, a herd situation in an area where they live, they've got like a whole bunch of horses there that, some are more confident than others, some take leadership at certain times. And when you take a horse out on a trail ride, if they don't have a very good, confidence underneath you, then they can be quite exposed out there. But the other thing that's also, makes horses quite anxious out on trail is the fact that that particular horse you're riding mightn't be the confident one that sort of, leads the herd into, new situations, or when there's danger in the paddock or a sense of danger, that the horse that leads the horses to safety. You might be on the horse that's not so confident, but then all of a sudden that horse has got its eyes in front of you because you're sitting behind its wither. So it has to process that whole environment all on, and it kind of feels like it's all on its own. So it becomes quite an overwhelming experience with some horses. So that's why they need a lot of good foundation. Understand all the things that we're asking them, be confident with us, and have a form of connection and safety with us to feel like, you're kind of doing it together. It's just not isolated.
Okay, so there's different types of horses then, and we don't know what we've got until we expose them to a situation where where that presents itself. But are there ways then that we can help horses to change? Is it easy to change a horse that's not used to sort of being a lead horse, but you're riding out by itself? Can it fit that role?
Well, it's just a little bit more difficult to fit that role. Some horses are really instinctively wanting to hang with the other horses and follow the lead of the other horses. Sometimes you get sort of, horses that just are happy to follow the other horses, and so they usually anchor their mind to where the other horses are a lot more, and they don't want to process the new environment. And it takes a bit of time to get them to let go of that anchor thought, and think into the direction you want them to go and the direction you want them to process. Other horses, they get a little overwhelmed, and other horses are very confident. But it is harder to get some horses a lot more confident out on trail than other horses. Like over the years of starting, I had some horses they just ride out easy and process everything. But those horses grew up in the bush, and they kind of were used to the environment outside and big areas, big spaces, and lots of things to think about. So they could deal with that quite easy. All they had to learn is to deal with me. But then there are others that spent, weeks kind of quite fragile outside and, quite, what would you say, spooky.
Okay, we're going to go into the questions that have come through from members. So they're all specifically on trail riding. So hopefully some of these will just register with those of you who are listening. The first one is from Phoebe from England, who has a 13-year-old Connemara, and she's had this horse for nearly 3 years, had a lot of different homes previously, and has even been show jumping. She's finding now, though, that he was quite shut down when she got him, and he seems to be more comfortable now in this new home. But she's finding that there's a no response, especially now that they're riding out alone and he doesn't have a buddy. So when he is worried about something or he doesn't want to go in a certain way, he will stop and refuse to move. She says that she's been using techniques from quite a well-known trainer, which is the principle of working where he wants to be and relaxing more when he doesn't, which often unsticks him. However, but when they're out on a hack, when they're out on the trails, she has to get off and go the way he wants to, as he simply will not carry on. And this is why I'm reading this question, because that's such a common problem that people are having is the horse will just not will refuse to go somewhere. So she's a little bit stuck on what she should specifically be working on to help overcome this. And she wondered if you had any ideas at all.
So I guess the biggest thing you got to look at is the things that you use to motivate your horse to, search and let go of thoughts or take on new thoughts. So there's two things that I break it down into. There's the steering and the accelerator. The steering is, to me, what I use to get a horse to go and search out and leave the other horses. Why? Is because if a horse is looking one way, you pick up the rein, you can get it to look the other, which means if the horse is thinking on the other horses or stuck, you can get it to steer and let go of that. So really, I use the reins usually to get the horses to let go of a strong thought, but then take on a new idea. And that new idea could be, looking out into the direction where they're scared and you want them to sort of go. I discourage making the wrong location difficult and the right location easy. That's going to happen sort of organically anyway. So what I mean by that is by making the horse work where he wants to be versus rest him when he leaves that spot, is what do you do when you work him? That's the first thing I'd like to sort of, put out there for everybody to think about. What do you do to make your horse work there? Do you use your legs to move it? Do you make it sort of, steer and, what are you doing there? So potentially what you're doing is you're actually making the horse want to go somewhere else so you don't work it, which means you're teaching your horse to want you to stop guiding it. Because when the horse is somewhere where it wants to be, you're guiding it, but you're guiding it enough to go, oh, can I go somewhere else so you can stop guiding me? So that's why I don't want that mindset in people, because it can sometimes make them hustle their horses a little bit. So making the wrong thing difficult and the right thing easy is not necessarily making the wrong location difficult and the right location easy. We're trying to sort of make a strong thought a little difficult to hang on to, and when the horse lets go of that thought, it's going to get a little easier. So what I mean by that is when the horse gets a strong thought to fixate on the other horses and freeze and not want to move its feet and go away from the other horses, well, I might pick up the feel of a rein enough for it to let go of the thought. But as soon as it lets go of the thought, I just let the horse sort of search and try something else. So basically, when the horse is stuck, you become like a parking officer where you just sort of pick up on the rein and say, hey, let go of that, follow the rein over here, and the horse sort of lets go of the thought, follows the rein, and then starts to move a little bit, and you just keep doing that until that horse starts to search and sort of think about going somewhere. And the idea then is once the horse, so basically every time the horse stops, you pick up on a rein and say no parking, because every time they stop, that's when they anchor their thoughts somewhere or freeze, stare at something in the distance that's pushing back at them, that they're frightened to go towards. And you just say, well, I'm not going to make you go that direction, but I'm just going to say, don't freeze there, let go of that thought, try something else, until the horse is mobile and free and searching and moving around and steering left, steering right. So basically by taking the freeze and the plant out of the horse, you've got a moving horse that you can start to steer them in different directions. And that's when you can apply little things like tacking and things like that, where you can sort of say, oh, why don't you come over here and why don't you go over there? And then you'll feel the horses start to search away from the other horses, because every time they search back towards home or they kind of head back, you can say that's not available and then try something else. And then soon enough, they'll be searching away, and you let them go with that for a bit. And then once you've gone with that, then you take them back towards home. Say, I take you home, and then you take me out. And that's the idea. I take you home, you take me out. So by getting the horses to move out like that, you're not using your legs. But if you hustled the horse where they wanted to be, the chances are you're going to be kicking them and wearing out your legs too in the place that they want to stand. So I don't want to wear out my legs, because it's very easy for a horse to dull to your legs and not want to go forward. So once you've sort of done that, by doing that, the horse becomes free and it starts to process the environment it's in, because it's let go of the anchor, which is the other horses, and it might take on the new things that it might be frightened of, that it doesn't want to go towards, like the the paddock out there with all those things in it, or the pasture that you have to ride through, it might start to look out there and process the information out there. And if you see it sort of snort and look at something and go, well, I'm a bit frightened of that over there, well, you wait on it and let it process that. But as soon as it's processed that a little bit, if you think it was starting to freeze and just fixate, then you can always pick up a rein and say, let go of that, move a little bit in a different direction, take your mind off that and try again. And soon enough, those horses will be going wherever you want, because they become free flowing, and then the direction, going away becomes a lot easier. But the thing is you don't go out too far. You've got to come back again. Show them that you take them home, and then they'll take you out a little further each time, and then soon enough they'll be able to take you out. One day they might take you out 10 metres. And you ride them back, and that same day when you ride them out again, they'll go out 20 metres, and then in the space of an hour you could go back to the yards, out 20 metres, and then in the space of an hour you might be out 500 metres away from the yards. And in that 1 hour you've actually got your horse, you've done so many trail rides backwards and forwards that the horse has become confident that you can take it home, it can process, it goes out, nothing happened to it, and it comes home again. And then, and after a week or two, you'll find that those horses are going out kilometres, and then all of a sudden they've got no connection back to home. They're just going with you in a new environment, and they're quite confident with it. Some, it'll happen quicker, some will take a bit longer.
So that's the key, is that when you're riding them out or when you're riding them back to the yards, whatever it is, in wherever you are in that sort of journey, they are with you. They're constantly, their mind and you are sort of riding together. You're not losing them. Is that right?
Yeah. So a horse has a strong awareness of what we're doing, and we're with them, much like they've got an awareness of the horses around them in a herd. They're not hyper-focused on every horse in the herd, nor should they be hyper-focused on us, because they need to process the environment. It's only when they let go of us and fixate on other things, or they feel that there's no connection between them and us, that we're going to have problems. So basically, some horses disconnect completely. Some horses are frightened of us on their back and frightened of the tools that we use, so they become more fractious outside because they've got to process this whole scary environment. Plus they're scared of, the spurs that used to kick it and the bit that used to hammer it all the time. So they're actually double frightened out. So they have to be very comfortable with our guidance, very comfortable with us, and then we can build their confidence. But yes, they maintain a connection with us, but not a hyper-focus, like you might see on some arena-trained horses that are too scared to think about anything but the pressure that's gonna be imposed on them by the rider.
No, what I was thinking more was just when you're riding out, if you find that your horse is starting to, its gaze, you talk about those long gazes where it's starting to go off into the distance, and you feel that it's sort of just not paying attention to you and its anxiety is starting to go up. Do you retreat back to the yards a bit, so you kind of get into that good spot where it feels better and you feel more confident? Or do you keep, that's that difficult area. So because you were talking about going out, coming back and extending it. But are you always trying to do it within the sort of limit of what it can cope with and what you're happy with?
Yeah, so it's almost like enemy territory. There's allied territory, enemy territory. So what happens is you don't always have to go back to base for safety. The first few rides you might go back to base, which is back to where you left. But then what happens is if the horse sees something quite scary, you don't have to make the horse feel like you've got to keep going towards it at all costs. You say, we can retreat 10 metres away from that and then have another look. You don't have to go all the way back to safety, because safety is just retreating, for some horses, just 2 metres away from it. So they know that they can move away from it. So that is available. And then you turn around and say, let's have another look. So basically what happens is there's the base, and then slowly there's a boundary around the base that expands, and that's the allied territory. So that horse has been out 100 metres from base. Well, sometimes you go out 105 metres. Sometimes if it sees something scary, you've only got to come back 5 metres. You don't have to go all the way back to base, because that area of safety is growing all the time until basically everywhere the horse has got more confidence and feels safe.
Okay, the next question that I'm going to ask you is similar to what you've just been talking about. It's from Johanna. She's in the UK. And her horse has been actually gone backwards. So I'm interested to know your thoughts as to why it might have gone backwards, because she used to be able to do longer trail rides on it last year. But he's getting more and more anxious. So what she has been doing is riding him away with soft contact. And when he stops, she sits quietly and waits to see if he needs more time to process the surroundings, which is what you were just talking about. And after a minute or two of them staring into the distance, he will offer a few steps away from home. Then she allows him to choose the direction for a minute or two. And when she feels that his nerves are beginning to take over, she'll make the decision to turn him and bring him back home. She'll repeat that 3 or 4 times before ending the session, and each session is about half an hour. So she's wondering, is she on the right track, and is that approach going to help him become braver so that they can go back to doing the longer trail rides?
Yeah, so there was something in the question I think I remembered when I read the question, which I think is important, especially in that first part that you mentioned the horse went backwards. You used to be able to ride him out, but he was anxious. I think I remember seeing that in the question that you had an anxious horse, but you were able to ride him out.
That's right. He was always very anxious.
He was always very anxious.
But he's gone backwards.
Yeah, so he hasn't gone backwards. So what I would say is he hasn't gone backwards. This was bound to happen. So I meet a lot of very anxious horses that go out and they're kind of anxious, but eventually the worry cup just fills up and the horse can't cope with any more. So because he was ridden out on long trail rides, it's almost like post-traumatic stress syndrome. You get to a point that you can't keep enduring that amount of stress. So a long trail ride could be, say, 2 hours. Sometimes it could be 4 hours. So if a horse is out on a long trail ride for 4 hours, enduring that amount of anxiety, that's a lot of anxiety for a long time. So there's no release to that anxiety. So horses are geared to, say, worry, maybe escape from a potential danger, and then the herd finds safety, and then they all come down again, and then they might go up, and something scares them, and then they come down again. They're not geared, and they shouldn't be. Nobody, no human, no horse, no animal, I think is geared to sustain 2 to 4 hours of constant sort of anxiety without some form of release. So what was happening is if you push a horse past their processing speed for too long, they will regress. So you're right, he's gone backwards, but he was already saying, I'm really anxious and I can't cope with this. So what should have been done is that approach and retreat that you're doing now should have possibly been done before the long trail rides. You haven't ruined him by taking him on long trail rides. You just got to go through it again. So what you're doing is correct. You're taking him out and you're bringing him back. Sometimes what I would work on first is I would really, really focus hard in his safe environment. Don't even worry about taking him out past his certain nervous thresholds. Work out how well you can get him to let go of a thought and follow the feel of the reins. So you might be riding around just a paddock around your house, and he might sort of stare at a stump or something in the paddock. Or he might just get a gaze on some horses that are walking along. Well, you pick up that rein and say, let go of that thought. How easy can he let go of that thought and soften? And then you just give him a loose rein and just let him process the environment he's in. If he's not very adjustable in a fairly calm environment, he might be going all different directions, but a lot of horses are just steering, but they're not letting go of the thought of I'm worried, or there's something over there, or I want to go forward fast, or things like that. So I would get him very, very adjustable in a safe environment, so you can guarantee when you're walking forward and he gets a strong, long forward thought, you can pick up on 2 reins. Within a microsecond, he's backed up, he's let go of the thought, he's back in the reins, and when you loosen the reins and sit, he's just quiet, the ears are floppy, and he's breathing, going, yeah, I'm back here, I'm centered again. So basically, you've got to work on a lot of things to get him back to center, back to me, and that's that aware space where he's present, he knows you're there, he's breathing, So you're saying the reins bring you back to centre, they bring you back to a good feeling, okay? They get you to let go of that anxiety, that strong thought. Guarantee that. We'll work on it till it's guaranteed. And then ride him out. You'll find he gets to that threshold where he gets I'm a bit more worried. And then don't stand and let him just process the environment. get him to let go of that sort of little bit of a freeze and that sort of anxiety. As that anxiety builds up, say, let go of that, maybe come back around here and try and have another look. So don't just let him stare until he kind of finally relaxes. Get him to let go of the freeze or the strong stare, and then bring him back round again and say, now let's have a look in that direction. And I found that's the best way to get horses to process the new direction a bit more thoughtfully, instead of just go back into a fixated state. Because you've got to remember, those hours of trail riding has caused him to get a little bit fixated. So you're trying to break the habit of any fixation, any freeze, any sort of anxious movements that's just thoughtless. And then he'll start to process things in a more soft, I'm processing this to understand it way. So there'll be the right amount of caution and curiosity, opposed to heaps of caution and anxiety but no curiosity. So and then you'll find the right balance, and then soon enough he'll start to trail ride out and just process his environment a lot better, be a lot softer. But yeah, that approach, but go out and you bring him home until he's going out and coming back a lot softer, and he doesn't get in that freeze state. You don't want him in that kind of, well, not, it's a moving freeze. It's kind of stiff, frozen. You don't want him in that state for too long.
Okay, your final question is from Carla, and she's been doing just what you were talking about. She has a horse who's brilliant on groundwork. He's soft, focused. He'll go faster or slower as she needs. He lowers his head. He moves his feet softly. When she releases, he looks like he's going to fall asleep. So he's quite relaxed. However, when they go out on a ride, different horse. So, and this is what she wants to be able to do. They went just on the outer perimeter of the farm, and he had a big meltdown at some round bales that were sitting in the field. So what she did is she allowed him to retreat and relax at the first sight when she could see that he was concerned, and they were tacking backwards and forwards to get closer. She worked on doing different sort of movements, moving his hip and withers and shoulders, just to keep him moving so that he didn't go into that freeze. But when they got closer to the bales, so now about 50 metres away, he absolutely lost it. They were quite close to some fences, so she had to get off because it just wasn't safe, and he started to rear. What she noticed was that when he came off, all of that behaviour went, and he actually wanted to walk over to the bales and have a look. So what she's wondering is, she's just not...
Just to interrupt you there. When he came off, as in when she got off him?
When she got off him, he stopped and immediately wanted to walk over to the bales. So she's wondering how she can better prepare him at home, because you've mentioned to her before there might be a hole in the groundwork still, but she's finding she can see him as a soft horse. He's responsive on the ground, but in this scenario on his back, she's just not getting where she would like to be.
Okay, there's a few sort of key things, and I know you're worried about me saying there's a hole in the groundwork and just go back and find it.
No one wants to hear that, do they?
No one wants to hear that. Go back to the start and try again. And lucky it's not a program that I say, But I will say, in your groundwork, I think a lot of horses, and it doesn't, and you've got enough awareness on you, Carla, to know that what robotic looks like, and also what thinking and processing looks like. So when he's lovely and soft and he's working on the ground, he's lowering his head, he's doing all these things, he might have a nice connection with you, he might be flowing, but it's kind of one of those, some of that groundwork becomes quite simple for the horse. Just follow the feel and of the operator's ideas, and just, let's just focus on that. And when you're on the ground, it gives the horse a bit more of a focus point, opposed to them having to process the whole world in front of them. So in his groundwork, I think I'm not going to give you a whole bunch of things to think about. One thing I'd really want you to sort of really look into is how well can you get him to look away and think away from you, not just, work on the body control and the flowing circles and because a horse can just follow the feel of us, just like a dancer. You see there could be one dancer that's leading the movement, the other one that's following the movement. When a horse rides out, the role changes. They have to lead in a way that they've got to process the whole environment, make decisions. When we're doing groundwork with a horse, they can just follow the feel of the leading dancer, which you're the leading dancer. So you pick up a feel on the rope, they follow the rope. You step this way, they go that way. Whatever you're doing anyway. So they just sort of tune into that, and they get lovely soft, and the rest of the world goes away because they're in this nice little kind of So it gives us an illusion that our horses are going to be nice and soft and safe outside. And what you're doing is completely correct with your groundwork in the sense that you're getting your horse soft and connected. But if your horse is one that is a bit anxious and doesn't cope with those new things very well, or the suddenly scary things, and it goes from one extreme to the other, your groundwork now has to say, I need you to process to be the leader. I want you to be the leader, not just follow the dance, okay? So lots of lessons like look away, process that environment, don't always kind of put more of your focus on me, process the direction, think in that direction, so I might stand in front and get them to look over there, and then sort of, step out over there, going towards their thoughts, just with a kind of a soft awareness on us, but more of their primary focus on the direction that they're travelling and the information that's in front of them in that direction. So in your groundwork, I put a lot more of that into it, and you might find some little areas where he goes, ooh, there's something there, I might step over it carefully. Ooh, that frightens me a little bit, because you're getting him to break that stronger focus on you. So once again, instead of the primary focus being more on you and the secondary focus on where he's going, more of the primary focus on where he's going and his secondary focus on you, so he becomes a bit more of the direction, he's leading into that direction, not just following the feel of your idea. So that's the groundwork side of it. Riding, the key thing that you have to think about is when you got off him, he relaxed a bit, so he's comfortable following your leadership on the ground, but then when he has to become the leader and you're behind him and he's got to absorb that world, that's when he gets a bit more fractious, okay? So that's why I was talking about getting to be a leader horse in the groundwork, thinking away. In the riding, you're doing the right things, tacking and things like that, but I want you to sort of really think about how well he's leading and processing and searching, in the arena or in the safe area. Do you have to keep sort of using your legs to keep him going? Is he sucking back a little bit? Is there little areas in there where you find that he's kind of over-focused on you and over-relying on you, or is he thinking forward nicely and travelling forward and things like that? Really go over all those things and find those things. You might be working on good body control, shoulder control, hindquarter control, all that to get him supple and listening to you. And that's really good when you want the horse to let go of something, give them something else to think about. But in your riding, you've got to balance out I'm just going to sit here quietly and I want you to travel and I want you to think forward and I want you to process the direction you're going and not having to, and be a good leader horse. So really get him to lead out and maybe give him more time uninterrupted and find out what's in there, what if he gets lost, if he needs you all the time, and see if he can start to get a good forward thought where he's processing the direction he's going, not just relying on the aids that you're supplying to him.
Fantastic. We'll leave it there. For all of you trail riding, happy trail riding and safe trail riding, I hope that's given you some insights that might be able to mitigate some of the issues that we're having. We'll talk to you again next week, Mark.
Thanks, Jenny. Thanks, everybody.
You've been listening to Australia's very own Mark Langley, a horseman with many insights from his decades of dabbling. Jump online to keep learning. marklangley.com.au